There's a plant growing in your backyard right now that contains more protein than beef, more iron than spinach, and more calcium than milk. It has been used as food for over 5,000 years. European armies survived on it during famines. Entire villages sustained themselves through harsh winters eating nothing else. The protein content reaches 38% by dry weight. That is higher than soybeans, higher than any legume, higher than the protein powders selling for $50 per container. The plant grows everywhere. It costs nothing. It requires no cultivation. And the $100 billion protein industry has made absolutely certain you will never think of it as food. They did not ban this plant. They could not. It grows wild across every continent except Antarctica. It has survived every attempt at eradication because it thrives in disturbed soil wherever humans live. Instead, they did something more clever. They reduced 5,000 years of human nutrition to a single childhood warning. They made sure the only thing you knew about this plant was that it stings. They transformed one of the most valuable food sources on Earth into a weed you were taught to fear and avoid. While you learned to spray it with herbicides, they sold you protein powders. While you pulled it from your garden, they sold you iron supplements. While you taught your children to stay away from it, they sold you calcium tablets. The plant is called stinging nettle, Urtica dioica, the most nutritious plant you have been conditioned to hate. This is the story of the protein source that grows free in your backyard, the superfood that no company can monopolize, the nutrition that the supplement industry needs you to never discover. Before we open this vault, if these stories matter to you, the best way to preserve this knowledge is simple. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share these vaults with those who need to remember what we forgot. The archive opens in a nutritional research laboratory in Denmark, 2018. Food scientists were conducting routine analysis of wild edible plants. They expected to confirm what previous studies had suggested about the modest nutritional value of foraged foods. When they tested stinging nettle, they assumed their equipment had malfunctioned. The protein reading showed 33% by dry weight. They recalibrated. They tested again. The second reading showed 35%. A third test from a different sample location showed 38%. These numbers were impossible by conventional understanding. Soybeans, the highest protein legume in commercial agriculture, contain approximately 35% protein. The soybean industry had built a global empire on this protein content. Billions of dollars in infrastructure, processing, and marketing depended on soybeans being the superior plant protein source. A wild plant growing in ditches and abandoned lots had just matched or exceeded the crop that entire industries depended upon. The researchers expanded their analysis. The amino acid profile was complete. All 9 essential amino acids that humans must obtain from food were present in significant quantities. The protein was not just abundant, it was high quality. The iron content measured 14 times higher than spinach, the vegetable most associated with in public consciousness. The calcium content measured 6 times higher than milk. The vitamin A content exceeded carrots. The research team had discovered something that challenged the entire foundation of the modern protein industry. They published their findings in a peer-reviewed journal. The study was verified by independent laboratories. The data entered the scientific record. The supplement industry responded with absolute silence. No press releases acknowledged the findings. No protein powder company mentioned that a free wild plant matched their expensive products. No health magazine featured the discovery. The most significant nutritional finding in decades was met with coordinated indifference by every corporation that profits from selling what nettle provides for free. The history of stinging nettle as human food extends to the earliest records of civilization. Archaeological evidence confirms nettle consumption dating back at least 5,000 years. Bronze Age settlements show nettle seeds and fibers preserved in ancient trash deposits. The plant was not just occasionally eaten, it was a dietary staple. Every culture that encountered stinging nettle recognized its value. Ancient Egyptians documented nettle as a medicinal and nutritional plant. Greek physicians, including Hippocrates and Dioscorides, prescribed it for multiple ailments. Roman soldiers reportedly whipped themselves with nettle to stay warm during cold campaigns in Britain. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder devoted extensive passages to nettle in his natural history. He described it as food, medicine, and textile source. The plant was so valuable that Romans cultivated it deliberately, rather than simply foraging wild populations. Medieval European monasteries maintained nettle gardens. The monks who preserved agricultural knowledge through the Dark Ages understood nettle's importance. Monastery records show dedicated nettle beds alongside vegetable gardens. The plant was treated as a crop, not a weed. Peasant communities across Europe depended on nettle for survival. During the lean months between harvests, when stored grains ran low and livestock had been slaughtered, nettle provided protein that kept families alive. The plant emerges early in spring when other food sources are scarce. It filled the hunger gap that killed the unprepared. This knowledge was not folklore, it was survival. Families that understood nettle's value survived famines that killed their neighbors. Communities that maintained nettle harvesting traditions had lower mortality during food shortages. The plant was literally the difference between life and death. This survival knowledge passed through generations for thousands of years. Then modern food marketing arrived, and within 50 years, the knowledge accumulated across 5 millennia was nearly erased. The sting of stinging nettle has been weaponized as a psychological barrier. Understanding what actually happens when you touch nettle reveals how exaggerated the fear has become. Nettle leaves and stems are covered with tiny hollow hairs called trichomes. When skin contacts these hairs, the tips break off and inject a mixture of chemicals including histamine, acetylcholine, and formic acid. The sensation is similar to multiple tiny insect stings. It burns, it itches. It is genuinely unpleasant. But here is what the fear-based narrative does not tell you. The sensation typically fades within 30 minutes to 2 hours. It leaves no lasting damage. It causes no serious injury. The reaction is less severe than a bee sting, which does not prevent millions of people from maintaining gardens where bees are present. More importantly, the sting disappears completely with minimal processing. Cooking nettle for even a few minutes destroys the stinging hairs. Drying the leaves eliminates the sting entirely. Crushing or blending fresh leaves breaks the trichomes and neutralizes their effect. Every traditional culture that used nettle understood these simple facts. They did not fear the plant. They respected it. They wore gloves during harvest and processed it appropriately. The sting was a minor inconvenience, not a reason to avoid one of the most nutritious foods available. The modern fear response has been culturally manufactured. Children are taught to fear nettle before they are taught to tie their shoes. Parents pass on warnings without any context about nutritional value. The cultural message is consistent. This plant hurts, therefore avoid it completely. No one mentions that the pain is temporary. No one explains that cooking eliminates the problem. No one provides the context that would allow rational risk-benefit analysis. The protein industry did not create this fear deliberately. They simply benefit from it enormously. A population afraid to touch nettle is a population that buys protein supplements instead of harvesting free nutrition. The nutritional profile of stinging nettle embarrasses commercial protein sources. Consider protein content first. Dried nettle leaves contain 30 to 38% protein depending on growing conditions and harvest timing. This exceeds soybeans, the benchmark for plant protein. This exceeds lentils, chickpeas, and every other legume in common cultivation. The protein quality matters as much as quantity. Nettle protein contains all 9 essential amino acids in meaningful amounts. The amino acid profile is more complete than most plant proteins, which typically lack adequate methionine or lysine. Nettle approaches the protein quality of animal sources. 50 grams of dried nettle provides approximately 15 to 19 grams of complete protein. The same amount of protein from commercial plant sources costs several dollars, and the nettle costs nothing. The iron content is extraordinary. Fresh nettle contains approximately 1.6 milligrams of iron per 100 grams. Dried nettle concentrates this to approximately 14 milligrams per 100 grams. Spinach, the vegetable famous for iron content, contains only 2.7 milligrams per 100 grams fresh. Nettle provides more than 5 times the iron of spinach. The iron is also highly bioavailable. Nettle contains vitamin C, which enhances iron absorption. The iron is present in forms that the human digestive system handles efficiently. Studies show iron from nettle absorbs better than iron from many commercial supplements. Calcium content rivals dairy products. Dried nettle contains approximately 480 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams. Whole milk contains approximately 125 milligrams per 100 grams. Nettle provides nearly 4 times more calcium by weight than the food industry promotes as the essential calcium source. Additional nutrients compound the value. Vitamin A, vitamin K, magnesium, potassium, and zinc are all present in significant quantities. The plant is essentially a wild multivitamin that also provides substantial protein. The supplement industry sells these nutrients separately in pill form. A monthly supply of protein powder, iron supplements, calcium tablets, and multivitamins costs $50 to $100. Nettle provides all of these nutrients in whole food form. It grows freely on every continent where humans live. The economic threat to the supplement industry is existential. The World War II experience revealed nettle's true value to a generation that was then taught to forget. When the war disrupted food supplies across Europe, traditional knowledge suddenly became survival knowledge again. In occupied territories, protein became nearly impossible to obtain through normal channels. Meat was confiscated for military use. Dairy products disappeared from markets. The civilian population faced protein malnutrition on a massive scale. Grandmothers who remembered the old ways saved their families. They sent children to collect nettle from bombed-out lots and roadside ditches. They prepared nettle soup, nettle bread, and nettle tea. They provided protein when no protein was supposed to be available. The German hunger winter of 1944-1945 killed an estimated 20,000 people. Families with nettle knowledge had better survival rates than families who depended entirely on official rations. British civilians experienced similar rediscovery. The wartime British government actually encouraged nettle collection. Official broadcasts taught citizens to identify and prepare nettle. The Ministry of Food published recipes incorporating wild plants that had not appeared in cookbooks for generations. The war proved that nettle could sustain human populations through extreme scarcity. This should have established nettle permanently as a valued food resource. The knowledge had been tested under the most difficult conditions imaginable. It had saved lives. It had demonstrated its value beyond any reasonable doubt. The opposite happened. When the war ended, industrial food systems resumed. Supermarkets opened. Processed foods filled shelves. The abundance of commercial products made foraging seem unnecessary, primitive, and embarrassing. The generation that had survived on nettle taught their children to buy protein at the store. The knowledge that had saved them was not passed on. Within 20 years, most people had forgotten that nettle was edible at all. The protein industry did not have to suppress this knowledge actively. They simply had to wait for it to die with the generation that had used it. The textile applications of nettle reveal how thoroughly this plant has been erased from consciousness. Nettle fiber is stronger than cotton. It is more durable than linen. It has been used for cloth production for at least 3,000 years. Bronze Age Europeans made nettle cloth. The fiber was valuable enough to trade across significant distances. Archaeological sites have yielded nettle textiles preserved for millennia. The German military used nettle fiber during World War I. When the Allied blockade cut off cotton imports, Germany faced a textile crisis. They could not produce enough fabric for military uniforms. The solution was a plant that grew wild across the country. By 1917, nettle collection was mandatory in some German-occupied territories. The fiber was processed into cloth that equipped soldiers when cotton was unavailable. The military-grade textile came from a plant most people considered worthless. The fiber quality exceeds what most people would expect from a wild plant. Nettle fibers are naturally hollow, providing insulation properties. The tensile strength exceeds cotton significantly. The fabric breathes well in summer and retains heat in winter. Modern sustainable textile researchers have rediscovered nettle fiber. Small companies produce nettle cloth for specialty markets. The fabric commands premium prices from consumers seeking alternatives to cotton's environmental footprint. The plant that was dismissed as a weed produces luxury textile. This textile history has been almost completely forgotten. The cotton industry dominates global fiber markets. They have no interest in promoting a competitor that grows wild without cultivation, irrigation, or pesticides. The erasure of nettle's textile value parallels the erasure of its nutritional value. The same plant that the protein industry ignores, the textile industry also ignores. The suppression is comprehensive across multiple sectors that would be threatened by widespread nettle utilization. The cultivation of stinging nettle is almost unnecessary because it cultivates itself. Nettle thrives in nitrogen-rich soil. It grows most abundantly where humans live, work, and dispose of waste. The conditions that human habitation creates are exactly the conditions nettle prefers. This is not coincidence, it is coevolution. For thousands of years, nettle grew in human settlements where waste decomposition enriched the soil. Humans ate the nettle and deposited more nitrogen-rich waste. The relationship was mutually beneficial. Nettle is what ecologists call a camp follower. It follows human populations. It establishes wherever humans disturb soil and enrich it with organic matter. It grows in the places humans are most likely to encounter it. The plant is literally trying to feed you. Harvesting requires only basic precautions. Gloves protect hands from stings. Long sleeves prevent arm contact. The discomfort of accidental stings is minor and temporary. The optimal harvest window is early spring. Young nettle shoots contain the highest protein content and the most tender texture. As the plant matures, protein content decreases and fibers become tougher. The first growth of spring provides the best nutritional value. This timing is not arbitrary. Nettle emerges precisely when other food sources are scarcest. It fills the hungry gap of late winter and early spring when stored food runs low and gardens have not yet produced. The plant evolved to be most nutritious when humans need it most. Traditional cultures understood this timing intuitively. Spring nettle harvest was an annual ritual in cultures across Europe and Asia. The first nettle soup of the year was celebrated as a return of abundance after winter scarcity. The plant marked the transition from hunger season to growing season. Modern agriculture has made us forget that hunger season ever existed. Supermarkets provide consistent food supplies year-round. The seasonal rhythms that governed human nutrition for millennia have been obscured. We no longer remember why spring nettle mattered so much, but the plant still emerges every spring, still offers its protein, still waits for anyone willing to remember what we forgot. The preparation of nettle for consumption requires minimal processing. Cooking is the simplest method. Boiling nettle for 1 to 2 minutes completely eliminates the sting while preserving most nutrients. The cooking water itself becomes a nutritious broth that can be consumed or used as a soup base. Steaming works equally well. The steam denatures the proteins in the stinging hairs. The texture remains slightly firmer than boiled nettle. Steamed nettle makes an excellent substitute for cooked spinach in any recipe. Drying preserves nettle indefinitely. Dried nettle can be stored for years without refrigeration. The protein content actually concentrates during a drying. The sting disappears completely. Dried nettle can be crumbled into soups, stews, and baked goods. Nettle powder provides maximum convenience. Dried nettle ground into powder can be added to smoothies, sprinkled on food, or incorporated into any recipe. The neutral flavor blends easily with other ingredients. A tablespoon of nettle powder provides significant protein, iron, and calcium. The flavor is mild and versatile. Cooked nettle tastes similar to spinach, but with more depth. It absorbs flavors from cooking liquids well. It works in virtually any recipe that calls for cooked greens. Traditional preparations span every cuisine that encountered nettle. Italian cooks make nettle pasta and nettle pesto. British traditions include nettle soup and nettle beer. German cuisine features nettle dumplings. Russian cooks make nettle borscht. Every culture that used nettle developed preparations suited to their culinary traditions. Modern recipes have expanded these traditions. Nettle can be added to green smoothies for protein boost. It can be incorporated into bread dough. It can be dried and used as a seasoning. The applications are limited only by imagination. The barriers to use are psychological, not practical. Anyone who can boil water can prepare nettle safely. The sting that keeps people away disappears with minimal processing. The only thing preventing widespread use is the cultural conditioning that says this plant is a weed rather than a food. The economic implications of nettle awareness terrify the supplement industry. Consider the math that marketing departments hope you never calculate. The average American spends approximately $50 monthly on protein supplements alone. Add iron supplements, calcium supplements, and multivitamins, and the figure approaches $100 monthly. Annually, this exceeds $1,000. Nettle provides all of these nutrients for free. The plant grows in every state. It requires no cultivation. It produces harvestable material from early spring through fall. A modest harvesting effort provides more nutrition than hundreds of dollars in supplements. Scale this across the population. The U.S. supplement industry generates approximately $50 billion annually. A significant portion of this revenue comes from products that nettle makes unnecessary. Protein powders, iron tablets, calcium supplements, and multivitamins all face competition from a plant that grows in ditches. The industry cannot compete on price. They cannot lower costs below free. They cannot improve their nutritional profiles to exceed wild nettle. They can only maintain market share by ensuring consumers never consider nettle as an alternative. This explains the coordinated silence. No supplement company mentions nettle in their marketing. No protein powder compares itself to wild alternatives. No industry publication features nettle as a story. The topic is avoided entirely. The avoidance extends to regulatory positioning. The supplement industry lobbies for regulations that favor manufactured products over whole foods. They support frameworks that require expensive testing and certification for health claims. Wild plants that anyone can harvest do not fit these regulatory frameworks. The system is designed to favor products over plants. Corporations can navigate regulatory requirements. Wild nettle cannot be branded, patented, or controlled. The infrastructure of modern nutrition marketing has no way to profit from a plant that belongs to everyone. The story of stinging nettle is not just about nutrition. It is about manufactured ignorance. For 5,000 years, humans recognized this plant as one of the most valuable foods available. They cultivated it, harvested it, preserved it, and celebrated it. They survived famines because they understood its worth. Then, within a single century, this knowledge was almost completely erased. Not through conspiracy, not through deliberate suppression, through the simple economics of attention. Industries that profit from selling nutrition have no incentive to publicize free alternatives. Media outlets dependent on advertising revenue do not feature content that threatens advertiser business models. Educational systems funded by corporate interests do not teach knowledge that undermines corporate products. The result is a population that fears one of the most nutritious plants on earth. Children learn that nettle stings and should be avoided. They do not learn that the sting is temporary and easily neutralized. They do not learn that the plant their ancestors depended upon still grows in their backyards. This manufactured ignorance serves industry, not people. Every person who avoids nettle is a customer for protein supplements. Every family that sprays nettle with herbicides is a customer for iron tablets. Every gardener who eradicates nettle is a customer for calcium supplements. The $100 billion supplement industry depends on you not knowing what grows for free. You can end your participation in this manufactured ignorance today. The nettle is waiting. It has been waiting since before human civilization began. It waited through the millennia when humans valued it. It waited through the decades when humans forgot it. It waits now for anyone ready to remember. 38% protein, 14 times the iron of spinach, 6 times the calcium of milk, growing in your backyard. While you spend $50 monthly on supplements, it provides for free. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and every share helps preserve this wisdom. The next vault opens soon.